Now on the GBPUSD, I have a sell position triggered at this point, so I will be sharing with you how I got to taking advantage of the sell position right here. So firstly, we shall scale up into the higher time frame. Is it a daily time frame here, or I think the 4 hours time frame? Let me see. Okay, so we started with the daily time frame here. So on the daily time frame, I had a simple setup here, which projects that price action has a tendency of going to the upside here. And in fact, if you look at what has been going on in this market since the last quarter of last year, you will see that price action has been very bullish. But my center of focus for today is from the month of May. And what I was able to spot here is, first of all, the ascending trend line after connecting the series of higher lows here, giving us a beautiful trend line to work with for this week. Then in addition to that trend line is that 1.2600 level, which is a very strong psychological area that has been a major determinant of price action since the beginning of the month of May. Now, if you look at that level along the 1.26, you will see how it has determined it has been a very strong selling niche at one point, especially at the beginning of the month of May. We saw price drop to the downside from that area. Then later, during the second week of the month of June, we saw how price action did a final breakout of that level. And on the last trading day of last month, we saw price come back into the 1.26 area. And what happened from that area was an interesting engulfing bullish candle springing out from that structure, giving us a clue that buyers are present around that area. Now, one more thing that makes this whole structure very interesting is the fact that the trend line here also shares a confluence with an ascending trend line. And for the fact that price action found bullish momentum above and within the structure on Friday, for me, is a sign that we might likely be seeing a bullish momentum from this point. That is a trend continuation to the upside. Now, if you look at this whole structure here that led to the breakout of structure, this whole bearish move can be seen as a retracement of that impulsive move, and the appearance of buy pressure from this confluence has a high chance of pushing price action to inside the second leg of that bullish momentum. However, in as much as we're looking out for buy positions here, we cannot ignore the potentials of sellers too as well. And considering the fact that we are at a critical confluence here, there is still a possibility that price could break through the structure to incite a sell-off in this market. So we are also going to keep our minds and our options open for this perspective too as well, while we look out for buying opportunity. So in order to have a good idea of what is going on here, I needed to scale down into a much more lower time frame where I was able to identify a simple setup that we are going to be using to guide our trading activity for this week. And if we scale down into the 4 hours time frame, this is what I was able to come up with here. Now, if you look at the structure here on the 4 hours time frame, the first thing, that's the ascending trend line we identified, and that is the 1.2600 key level we saw on the daily time frame. Now, in addition to these levels here, this as descending trend line, which lasted for about 2 weeks. As you can see, price has been finding lower highs in this market, so as a result of that, we had a descending trend line to work with. And since the beginning of the week, we saw our price action, we have the key level for the week right here at the 1.27. So that's my key level for the week. Depending on how price action reacts to this key level would determine where we are going to be going. And you know how we use our key level in this community. When price action trades above our key level, we want to be looking out for patterns and structures that will support a bullish move. However, if price action trades below our key level, definitely we want to be looking out for patterns and structures that will support a bearish move to the downside. Now, with this idea in mind, we needed to see how participants in the market will be reacting to this very beautiful confluence here at the 1.27, which is quite close to the descending trend line we identified earlier. And for the fact that price remains below that trend line, still gives hopes for sellers that price could still go to the downside. But one interesting thing we saw here on Friday was this old reversal pattern that you saw here, after price action testing the 1.2600 area, we saw a reversal pattern unfold. And you know, whenever we identify a potential reversal pattern, the next thing we want to be doing is to identify a neckline which we are going to be using. So when we have a neckline at the 1.265, we saw the breakout of the neckline on Friday. And in this kind of situation, from a technical standpoint, we expect that following the breakout of the neckline, price action may come back, retest the neckline to incite a trend continuation to the upside. So in as much as I have a sell position triggered here, I must be very, very careful to be on standby for any bullish momentum that might come in here. So for those who took advantage of a sell position around this area, you want to move your stop losses to secure the current position, as price action could come back and retest this neckline area to incite a strong bullish move to the upside. So this is what we are going to be looking at. So the next thing we want to be doing now is to see how participants in the market has been reacting to the structure, and to do that we scale down into the 1 hour time frame. Now on the 1 hour time frame, this was what I was able to spot here this morning after trying to decipher what our next line of action would be on the GBPUSD. So remember, we have the 1.27 area, which is our key level for the week, and for the most part of today, price has been trading below that key level. However, we noticed something here, that price action was caught within that range between the 1.27070 and the 1.26880 level. And with this situation here, we had a flat channel. And from a technical standpoint, you know how we do it. Whenever we identify this kind of simple setup, we wait patiently for price action to either break out of the resistance line for buying opportunity or breakdown of the support line for selling opportunities. Now with the situation we have here, and after waiting for a while for signal to come in, I had a buy stop order above the resistance line here to capture a bullish move. Then I also had a sell stop order below the 1.26880 to capture the bearish move. And as you can see, we had our sell stop order triggered, and price action has since moved over 30 pips before currently running with about 15 pips in profit at this point. So for those who are taking advantage of this opportunity along the 1.268 or even earlier than that, you definitely want to be moving your stop loss at this point to secure the current sell position. Very, very, very important. Remember what I showed you on the 4 hours time frame, where the 1.265 was serving as a neckline of that reversal pattern we identified on the higher time frame. And for the fact that price action remains above both the neckline here and the trend lines we identified on the higher time frame, there are still a very good chances that buyers could come in. So for every sell position we have at this juncture, kindly move all stop losses to secure this current sell position. So with a well secured position in line now, how do we intend to manage the positions on the GBPUSD, and what are we going to be looking out for during the New York session today? And for those who had missed out on the sell position, how do we intend to join if market is going to be presenting us with more opportunities to maximize this move to the downside? So now, one of the two things we are going to be looking out for to continue the sell momentum here, we all know from a technical standpoint that when price action breaks down a key structure, just like the 1.26800 level that was just broken a couple of hours ago, we expect that one point in time, price is likely going to come back and retest that structure. So we are going to remain patient. That is, for those who had missed out on the sell position, we are going to remain patient at this point in time and see how price action will play out going forward. So if price action comes back into the structure, that is the 1.26880, it could even go as far as the 1.2700 area. But the most important pattern we want to be looking out for in this region is a reversal pattern. So it could be a double top structure, a head and shoulder, a rising wedge, whichever reversal pattern you could think of. Then look out for continued selling pressure where signs that buyers are finding it difficult to climb back above the 1.2700 level will be that opportunity we are looking forward to join the bearish move to the downside. And for those who still have a sell position running at that point, you want to be adding more position to your existing trade. So that is how we are going to be selling the GBPUSD for today on the in this market. However, I told you on the daily time or the 4 hours time frame that the tendency of a bullish momentum is still very possible, where this impulsive move we saw here on Friday may likely be going through a retracement phase right now, and how far will this retracement phase go is what we don't know. But in order to project the potential of where the retracement phase will go, we would need the our tool here, the Fibonacci retracement tool, run it through the previous impulse leg, and we should be aiming at our golden zone area. You know where our golden zone area is, between the 50 and the 78.6% of that previous impulse leg. So my golden zone area is always yellow. So let me give it a yellow color to make things a little bit more easy on the mind. And then we should be having this area as a potential TP target for sellers. Let us name it that way, for sellers. And that same area will also be serving as a potential demand zone if we start seeing reversal patterns within that zone. So let's bring this back into the structure. I would like to give this a green color. Here we go. So we delete the retracement tool as it is no longer needed. So right now, this is what we have right now. So the bearish move we are witnessing right now at this point in time is likely going to be a retracement of the impulsive move we saw on Friday. So we are going to be looking forward to, for those who are already in a sell position, your TP target should be within this area, which will be dovetailing to a minimum of 30 to a maximum of 60 pips on this one. So what we are going to be looking out for here is if price drops into this area, and remember the 1.265 is our neckline of the reversal pattern we identified on the 4 hours time frame. Now, depending on how price action reacts to this zone will determine if we are going to be joining a bullish momentum or getting ready to sell or add more position to our existing sell trade. So if weak price gets into the structure and we begin to see some double bottom structure, inverse head and shoulder pattern, or any reversal pattern you could think of, then let me say 80% sure that price action is likely going to be going to the upside. So we are going to be looking out for confirmations to join that bullish move if we see reversal patterns within the zone. However, if price action drops and breaks down that neckline we identified on the higher time frame, that is the 1.265, and we begin to see continued selling pressure below the structure, that is buyers are finding it difficult to climb back above the 1.265, then we will have no other choice than to continue to add more position to our existing sell trade. So this is how we are going to be trading the GBPUSD as long as price action remains below that 1.26880 level, which happens to be the support line of that range we identified earlier. Now, in as much as we are looking out for selling opportunities below the 1.2688, you know how we do it in this community. We also want to keep tabs with the opposite direction too as well. So what happens if price action continues to the upside? Are we going to miss out on that opportunity? Of course, no. Now, if we are going to be taking advantage of a buy position, what do we want to see on this chart that will make us feel comfortable buying the GBPUSD? Now, at this point in time, if you look at what happened on Friday, we saw that when price got into the structure, we saw selling pressure. And since the beginning of the week, price is yet to break out of the previous high, hereby giving us a lower high. And from a technical standpoint, when we start seeing lower highs, what does it tell us? It tells us that selling pressure is gradually building momentum. So what we want to be doing next when we see a lower high is to connect a series of lower highs to give us a trend line to work with for today. So I have a trend line at this point right now. So let us bring this out. And I would like to give this a red color and thicken it a little bit so that we can emphasize its importance at this juncture in the market. So we already have a descending trend line to work with at this point. So for me to buy the GBPUSD, that is, if price does not drop into this area but instead continue to find higher highs, then I would only be thinking of buying if price breaks out of this descending trend line. So once the breakout of the descending trend line happens, remember, we are not getting too excited to jump in. We are not having a buy stop order either. What we are going to be doing is to remain patient and wait for confirmations to happen. So as soon as the breakout of that trend line happens, we scale down into our lower time frame. It could be your 10 minutes, 15 minutes or 5 minutes time frame to look out for a retest of structure, something like this. Retest happens, continue by pressure above this area will be that beautiful opportunity we are looking forward to join a trend continuation to the upside. And in fact, if price action continues to find higher highs, then we have levels like the 1.27070 level to maximize the potential of this move if price action breaks out, retest that structure. So in fact, it's a very simple setup we have on the GBPUSD for today. So you want to be marking this level out on your chart, as you will need them as a reference point when you're about to make your independent decision on the account.